Good evening and many thanks for joining us live on QTV. You are watching QTV News and I am Ajibintu Drame. In tonight's top stories, we look at the history of our island capital, Banjul, which has been vulnerable to flooding since its founding over 200 years ago, particularly the aftermath of 1948 flood in Bathos. 15 health officials have graduated after 9 months intensive training in field epidemiology. Following the launch of the National Electronic Birth Certificate and Insurance Scheme, the Ministry of Health, in its weekly briefings on Friday, clarified rumors and reminded the public of the documents needed for the registration process. Woodcraft vendors at the Birkama Craft Market have complained about low sales of their craft business during the tourism off-season. And the National Environment Agency, in collaboration with the Gambia Police Force and partners, have embarked on tree planting exercise in police stations across the country. Those were our headlines, and now the news in detail. Now, we look at the history of 1948 flood in Bathos, its aftermath, and the historical studies that liken our capital to floating sponge that is naturally prone to flooding. Mobdulamin Choi has had a rare access to historical records at the National Archives and spoke to a lead historian for this story.
An island capital prone to floods for centuries since its founding in 1816. The 2022 July 30th and 31st flood was devastating for Banjul, but it was not the worst in history to have hit our capital city. It was a case of déjà vu for historians and those old enough to remember the torrential rainfall that turned the capital into a river. Guided by a lead historian, Hazim Sise, we were given rare access to the National Archive to examine historical records of the 1948 flood in Bathos, now Banjul.
Now on 13 August 48, the skies opened up. Like I said, 37 inches of water fell. And that was really a very, very serious flooding. For 8 days, the town was underwater. In fact, people had to use, canoes to be distributing, food, like dry biscuits.
37 inches of rainfall converts to 939.8 millimeters of rainfall. In the wake of the August 13, 1948 floods, the Gambia newspaper Bulletin, which was the colonial government's paper, reports seeing many people in the capital wading through the streets and that the Accountant General traveled from his residence to his office by canoe. The flood was record-breaking because it was impossible to trace so heavy a rainfall in so short a space of time. At the time of the 1948 flood, there was no drainage system in the capital, despite several calls for it by the inhabitants since the 1920s. The impact of the floods forced the colonial government to devise a drainage scheme to help mitigate the impact of flooding in the city.
And that was how the Grand Street gutter, for example, that big gutter along Grand Street, that's the time that it was constructed. Another thing that the colonialists did was to establish the pumping machine, so as to help to evacuate, excess water from the town. A third thing they did was to construct the bond road, and here we have, pictures, of the construction of the bond road, in 1948.
The flood-prone nature of the capital was featured in survey reports of engineers who came with the founder of Bathos, Captain Kran, to assess and demarcate the island for possible settlement in 1816. Without any drainage, during the summer, colonial government officials and elite in the island would decamp to settle in Cape Point, Bacau, and the Combos to escape floods on the island.
In fact, one of them called it a floating sponge. In a report, that he did, in the 1850s.
Over 200 years since its founding, our capital remains flood-prone despite a recent $1.8 billion project to rehabilitate roads, sewage, and the drainage system.
In the Blackburn report, and even, in the earlier reports, it is stated that it's vulnerable to flooding because you have the sea on one part, okay? You have the estuary on the other part, and of course you have the swamps, the Tanbi, okay? So like our capital city is really like a sitting dock, okay? Surrounded by these three sources of water. Now you add the rainwater to that, and then the cocktail becomes even, more explosive, if you want. So I think, any action that has to be taken will have to bear in mind some of these historical, realities.
During this period, we are witnessing the imminent danger to our capital city posed by the devastating impact of climate change, flash floods, and sea level rises. Time is running out to take drastic action to mitigate the impact of various natural disasters on our island capital, Banjul. Mohamed Lamin Choi, QTV News.
Now, 15 health officials have graduated after 9 months intensive training in field epidemiology. The program was organized by the Ministry of Health in partnership with U.S. Center for Disease Control and Africa Field Epidemiology Network. More in this report. The 15 graduates come from different sectors within the Gambia, such as the Gambia Armed Forces, livestock services and public health officials, among others, with the aim to strengthen surveillance system by detecting diseases on time. Dr. Jainaba MLK, representing the Minister of Health, thanked the U.S. Center for Disease Control, USCDC, for funding the program and congratulated the graduates for their impeccable performances.
These participants that have just graduated today learned and practiced the fundamental skills using advanced disease surveillance, including public health research, case investigation, outbreak investigation and response, surveillance monitoring and evaluation, and data analysis and interpretation for decision making.
Dr. Desta Turune, the WHO country representative, advises the graduates to utilize their knowledge in best practice as well as broaden their knowledge to be the best in their field.
We have to practice IDSR. IDSR is a response system, that a surveillance system that will allow you to respond to health events, undesirable health events in a timely manner. If we cannot achieve that one, IDSR is useless.
Dr. Ellen Yard of the U.S. Center for Disease Control thanked their Gambian counterparts for the warm welcome and applauded the graduates for their potential and immense effort showed in the past 9 months.
As Johanna said, it cannot be done without the mentors. Mentorship is truly the backbone of FETP. Without the mentors that we have today, this would not have happened, and without the staff. So we really are just very appreciative of all that you have been able to accomplish.
This is the first intermediate cohort 1 training. Modun Jai, the Director of Health Promotion of the Ministry of Health, says he is optimistic that subsequent training will take place depending on support to improve in the sector. Bala Jata, from the Neglected Tropical Diseases Program at the Ministry of Health, who is also among the graduates, says he is elated to be part of the cohort and that the training is worthwhile.
9 months of sleepless nights, and coupled with coursework and your official work and all other assignments within 9 months, it's definitely not easy. So I'm very much happy to be here today.
Mr. Jata explains how he will utilize the knowledge gained in the interest of the nation.
Having graduated today, we'll be able to deal with subsequent public health emergencies that are going to emanate in this country. As we have started, I know you might have seen in the news a series of diseases that are being investigated, and we are part of that, and that's what we do. Like what is written on at the back of our disease detectives, we go there to detect those diseases and also investigate to know what causes those diseases and see and formulate measures of ensuring that we stop it at the source before it gets into the population.
Yakuba Drame, the Chief of Defense Staff of the Gambia Armed Forces, praised the graduates for their enthusiasm and brilliant performances. Ajibintu Drame, QTV News. Following the launch of the National Electronic Birth Certificate and Insurance Scheme, Amidiba, Senior Program Officer with the Ministry of Health, at a weekly briefing on Friday, clarified rumors and reminded the public of the documents needed for the registration process.
Following the launch of the country's first national electronic birth certificate registration and insurance scheme by the Ministry of Health and the World Bank, the ministry is now holding regular media briefings on developments, challenges and progress. This briefing by Amidiba, Senior Program Officer with the Ministry of Health, was mainly to clarify rumors and to remind the public of the documents needed for the process.
The following categories are those that should be having this birth certificate. Person born in the Gambia to one or both Gambian parents. 2, person born in the Gambia to parents who are non-Gambian. Persons born in the Gambia to parents who are refugees and they are residing in the Gambia. And the 4th one is person born outside the Gambia to Gambian parents. These are the categories we have that should get electronic birth registration.
Rumors that non-Gambians are getting birth certificates were clarified by Communications Officer Asa Kamara.
But those who are not Gambians, they are not born in the Gambia and by non-Gambian parents, there's no way that we give them birth certificate. The license that they are talking about, if you come with a license, you can have health insurance card. Understand? The campaign is 2 in 1. That's what people have to understand. We are issuing a birth certificate for Gambians, and we are issuing also a national health insurance card, understand, in which both Gambians and people residing in Gambia can have. Understand? So for the health insurance card, even whereas you come with a driving license or a residence permit, you can be given. Yes. So, but people should not misunderstand this to say.
Kamara added that the team confirms the authenticity of birth certificates presented to them to avoid giving birth certificates to undeserving individuals. Also that one should go to their place of birth instead of their current residence to get an alcalis attestation. Amidiba, the Senior Program Officer, also addressed allegations that the very birth certificate registration and insurance scheme process are slow.
But those who are not Gambians, they are not born in the Gambia and by non-Gambian parents, there's no way that we give them birth certificate. The license that they are talking about, if you come with a license, you can have health insurance card. Understand? The campaign is 2 in 1. That's what people have to understand. We are issuing a birth certificate for Gambians, and we are issuing also a national health insurance card. Understand? In which both Gambians and people residing in Gambia can have. Understand? So for the health insurance card, even whereas you come with a driving license or a residence permit, you can be given. Yes. So, but people should not misunderstand this.
Health Ministry officials called on the public to answer to their call and embrace the process. Reporting for QTV News, I am Jenna Bosonko.
And from that story, we will go for a commercial break. Still to come, we have more stories, so stay tuned.
The Ministry of Health, in collaboration with partners, will be embarking on another countrywide COVID-19 vaccination campaign from 11 to 28 August 2022. Vaccination teams will be deployed to public places such as community bantabas, health facilities, schools, markets, crossing points, and other strategic locations. All eligible people aged 12 and above are encouraged to come out and be vaccinated. Vaccination teams will be administering 3 types of vaccines, namely Johnson & Johnson, Pfizer, and Sinopharm, all of which are safe and effective in preventing severe COVID-19 infection, hospitalization, and death. For more information, call the ministry's toll-free number 1025.
Have you been looking for the perfect indoor router with long-range Wi-Fi coverage and faster internet speed connecting all your smart devices? Well, we present to you the QCell Indoor Router, a router that has all you need and much more. For just $4,275, you can get 4G plus internet speed, wide coverage, and connect up to 15 devices. And that's not all. The indoor router can be used for both office and home needs. So, enhance your internet experience with our indoor router. For more info, call our customer care on 111. QCell, Sinubus, we innovate, others follow.
Welcome back. Now, woodcraft vendors at the Birkama Craft Market have complained about the low sales of their craft business during the tourism off-season. Omar P. Jallo, who visited the Birkama Craft Market on Tuesday, has the rest of that story.
People selling at craft markets are highly dependent on tourists who usually buy their products. Now that the industry has slowed down due to COVID-19 and being in the tourist off-season, these people find it very difficult to make ends meet. The Birkama Craft Market is one of the oldest in the Gambia, where a variety of artifacts can be found. Sidia Sow, who have worked in the craft market for more than 30 years, selling batiks, tie and dye and wood carvings, said at the moment the sales are not going on well, as tourists are not coming in large numbers now, even during the tourist season.
bari na ay coono yu ci nekk bari na métit yu ñuy jànkonteel mu ci problème mu am bant ci problème mu liggéeyat ci problème mu client ndax ni nga wax.
Business has been slow even before COVID, but the COVID-19 not only affect our work, it takes us backward to start all over again. We are pleading with the government through the Ministry of Tourism to support us by identifying this place for tourists to visit. Sometimes we sit for more than 10 or 20 days without selling. Nependa Sow sell batiks and local beads at the Birkama Craft Market. She explained that they have gone through a lot since the COVID-19 pandemic hit the country.
For us here, it's very, very difficult for us for these past years because we've been feeling a lot of problems. Because if you look at the Birkama Woodcraft Market, it's the center of all these markets in the Gambia about the carving, and then we are very far from the industrial area. So here all our dependents are the tourists. So when the tourists are not coming, it's very difficult for us. Yeah, we have a big problem in that, definitely, for these past 3 years.
Sam Sidin Jallo also has a shop at the Birkama Craft Market.
You know, what will sort of know, me along with no craft market or Kadia Bakala. Because Ninata what a catara, you know.
This year's business is very slow due to the low turnout of tourists in the Gambia, who are not coming like previous years because of the COVID-19. The Ministry of Tourism should investigate our plight and support us, because we have families to feed. Even to pay the rent for my shop is a problem. My children and I are now living from hand to mouth. The industry was my hope, but it's been over 2 years now. We haven't made any meaningful sales. Last year, the Gambia government, through the Ministry of Tourism, allocated recovery funds for those working in the tourism industry. Research has confirmed that COVID-19 has been devastating to the Gambian economic operators, especially the micro and small businesses, who are the primary job creators, contributing more than 26% of the real GDP and 63% of employment. This craft market was established in Birkama in 1975 and was later moved to the new site on the main road in 2007. There are over 50 craft stalls with over 200 members who make and sell their artwork items such as djembe drums, painted calabash, batik, tie and dye, chains and amazing varieties of masks and other wood carvings. Reporting for QTV News, I am Omar P. Jallo.
Moving on, the National Environment Agency, in collaboration with the Gambia Police Force and the Forestry Department, have embarked on tree planting exercise in police stations across the country, beginning in the Upper River and the North Bank region. This story by Don Williams is narrated by Churchill Balde.
Climate change is real, and we must all join in the clarion call to fight against climate change. Tree planting has been suggested as one possible solution to help mitigate the effects of climate change. Assistant Police PRO Inspector Jamanka explains why they came up with this tree planting initiative.
The Gambia Police Force is not only concerned with protecting lives and properties, but also protecting the livelihoods of the people that they are protecting their lives. So we all know that climate change is something that is real. We are all witnesses to these flash floods taking place. These are all effects of climate change, and we deemed it necessary that we should go around the country. There are police stations that we feel they are porous in terms of, plants, trees. So with the support of the Department of Forestry, in collaboration with the National Environment Agency, with other partners, came together to support this initiative. And today we are in Farafenni. We started it in Fatoto 3 days ago. We were at Fatoto PIU, where we planted about 20 trees of different species. These are climate resilient trees.
Sheikh Alkinki Sanyang, Senior Program Environmental Education and Communication Officer of National Environment Agency, also spoke about the initiative.
This is a holistic partnership between the National Environment Agency and the Gambia Police Force. It has been to our notice that the police are doing so much a great job for our communities. What about if there is no tree, there is no life? What properties and life will the police now protect? This is the reason more so. That's why the National Environment Agency decided to partner with the Gambia Police Force in making sure we also do our part in mitigating climate change.
Saving the environment starts with us, and it is our responsibility to act against these terrible changes to preserve the planet for future generations. Efforts such as this one by the NEA, the Gambia Police Force, the Forestry Department, and other partners can help mitigate the effects of climate change if planned sustainably. For QTV News, I am Churchill Balle.
A young mechanic apprentice in Farafenni has used his talent to change a manual pedal bicycle to an engine-powered one. Our regional reporter, Don Williams, was among those astounded. Here is his report.
Low or a lack of skills perpetuate poverty and inequality. For those who acquire in-demand skills, this can reduce on- and underemployment, increase productivity, and improve living standards. Someone trying to make a change in his life by deploying his skill is Keba Day. Explains how he converted a manual bicycle to an engine-powered one.
Bi si conteneur la ko fekk gaay ñu ko wacce ma xalaat na suma ko defé ci hôpital bi dina daw ma jël machine bi maaj ko.
I saw this in a container and I thought that it will work if I put it in a bicycle. So I went for it. I fixed a dynamo for the electricity and used an accelerator and a chain from a motorcycle. I also modified and fixed an engine starter to the engine. I don't have materials to make a car, a plane or a helicopter. That's why I didn't make them.
Helicopter. I don't have the material. How more material?
Morgay, Keba's father and himself a motorbike mechanic who lives and works with his children and brother, explains how Keba started displaying this amazing talent.
Wow. Keba is my dom. Mom, I'm not a
Keba is my son and he has 4 brothers. I started bringing him to the workshop when he was 8 years old. He was not sharp at all, so I told him to join me, and he's doing very well. Even if I am not here or I travel, he's the one who takes over and carry out the works.
Sheikh Gay, a welder and Keba's uncle, was also keen to speak to us about Keba.
He is with his dad ever since he was a young boy. His father was doing this job before he was born. And we realized that he likes and respects this job. He can fix problems with many types of motorcycles. The problem is that we want to support him, but we are not financially strong. They are even struggling to get materials to use when working. He will do very well if he gets support.
Right now, then because support. Skills enhancements provides the opportunity and knowledge for individuals to develop and strengthen their skills to gain, maintain, and advance in a chosen field of work. There may be other young people like Keba who are skilled and talented and just need encouragement, resources, and support to really excel and change their lives and those of others for the better. Don Williams reporting for QTV News from Farafeni.
Inspiring story there. Before we end this bulletin, here's a recap of our headlines. We look at the history of our island capital, Banjul, which has been vulnerable to flooding since its founding over 200 years ago, particularly the aftermath of 1948 flood in Patos. Excuse me. 15 health officials have graduated after 9 months intensive training in field epidemiology. Following the launch of the National Electronic Birth Certificate and Insurance Scheme, the Ministry of Health, in its weekly briefings on Friday, clarified rumors and reminded the public of the documents needed for the registration process. Woodcraft vendors at the Birkama Craft Market have complained about low sales of their craft business during the tourism off-season. The National Environment Agency, in collaboration with the Gambia Police Force and partners, have embarked on tree planting exercise in police stations across the country. That's all for this edition. Thank you for watching.